Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or over in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard.
Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It is April 9th, 2024, and this is episode 62.
Yoo-hoo, we are racking up the numbers.
Yeah, we are. Oh, we got a new country, Denmark. Got joined forces and started listening to the podcast this week. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I've got family in Denmark. Maybe it's them supporting their cousin over here, their American cousin, which is a good thing. So how was your weekend? What did we do this weekend? Not a whole lot. The wife is starting to get more mobile and a little more independent, so that helps. We had first physical therapy yesterday, and the way she was moving around with their walker, they went, "Yeah, you need to be using a cane now." They just had to convince her. I was telling her, "You're standing up and doing stuff. You don't need that walker anymore." So she just got to believe in that her knee is strong enough, and she needs to be walking without supporting it so much so that it will get stronger. Yeah, so we didn't do a whole lot this weekend. It was a miserable, rainy, windy, just yuck weekend. We went from 80 degrees to about 40 and rain with wind. Yuck.
Yeah, yuck. So
we didn't
do a whole lot.
We just started raining today, but we finally got to the point where I could cut the grass this past weekend, and that was great. First one of the year. But I think that's about all we did. We did go to see the grandbabies, and they're getting ready to walk. Speaking of walking, they're pulling themselves up and climbing all over us, and it's fun stuff.
They're getting close to a year, aren't they?
Yeah, coming up in May. They're going to be a year old.
Wow, it seems like they were just born about 4 months ago. What the hey?
Her mother said the same thing. Their mother said the same thing. It's like, man, I can't believe the time has just flied. And it's like, I mean, it doesn't get any better. Every year goes by seemingly a little bit faster. When you get a little bit older, things go faster. And
you start seeing that finish line, and it's like, no, I don't want to get there yet. I'm going to slow walk instead of speed walk.
Is that a light at the end of the tunnel, or is that a train? But yeah. Anyway, so
thought I'd help with sound effects.
I appreciate that. That's great. Whenever possible, we like to start off with the wisdom from our commander-in-chief, and we have a good one this week. Here we go.
It's Uncle Joe's Wisdom of the Week.
Today, my administration is announcing the first tranche of dislocated worker grants, fancy phrase, which is dimes. All it is there to make sure it helps create jobs for workers involved in the cleanup of this incident. Additional jobs.
I don't know what he said, but if they're fresh, I'll take a dozen. I don't know what that
cleanup of this edition. What?
I have no idea. That poor guy. Every week, though, we have something. I mean,
they're getting instead of fewer, they're getting more and closer together.
Yeah, and exactly. You think of the way he spoke, even when he first took office in 2020, is night and day compared to what he has, the way he sounds today. It's incredible the downhill slide that has been going on. And like I said, I feel bad for him. I hate that's happening to him. I've still never agreed with him. I've still never thought he was very bright. And I always thought he was a liar. So, I mean, all that still is in place. But now he's but you got to wonder, this is not a conspiracy. When you listen to how he sounded during the State of the Union as compared to this past week's statement just now, I mean, it was night and day. So you got to wonder, are they loading him up with coffee? Are they shooting him with Adderall? What are they doing that is getting him to the point where he can actually articulate words?
Yeah, he only had a few mumbles in the State of the Union.
Yeah,
It
there
was
was a couple.
actually basically coherent. And ever since then, it's just been really bad. So whatever they gave him worked for that amount of time, a
Yeah.
short little I don't get it. It's sad to see, but someone who when they have dementia or Alzheimer's, and I'm not sure that he's at the Alzheimer's
Yeah, I
stage,
don't
but
know.
probably getting real close to it. But it just gets progressively. It's like it is running to the finish line, if you will,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's really sad to see someone that when you're still. My grandfather was that way a bit, had dementia, but he was. Uh, Exceedingly ambulatory, if you will, meaning
Yeah.
he got up and moved around up until the last couple years of his life. When he turned 94, he didn't walk as well and was finally in a wheelchair at about 95.
Hmm.
So,
Dang.
uh, he still was climbing a 6-foot cyclone fence
Oh
to
boy.
get out of the place. That's how ambulatory he was. As an old farmer that went, time to go home, I'm leaving. Couldn't go out the front door because they had him locked in.
Oh jeez.
Anyway, yeah, no, he left 3 times.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
But
No, it's, he determined to do stuff, you go. But it's just sad how it just kinda eats away and things, and then you have little flashes of, "Oh, he
you know,
knows who people are,"
and I
so.
don't know how true this is. I read this the other day, and like I said, I don't remember where the source was, but they said prior to 1960, there was no talk of Alzheimer's. There was no, this was not a thing. And, of course, I was only born in 64, so I don't know, but I mean, is this something that is caused by diet now? That's something in the water? Is it, I mean, what is causing this to be such a, it's almost like an epidemic among older people now that a lot of people get this kind of thing, at least to a
One
certain
thing that
extent.
they were talking about a few years ago, since you brought it up, is aluminum pans were a real big hot item. New fancy stuff in the 50s and 60s was everything was aluminum.
Yeah.
Well, they've kind of gotten away from that to a degree. Now they've got the PTFE. They went away from that for the nonstick.
Mhm.
So you're not cooking directly in aluminum. And they're saying even aluminum foil is a problem because in the old days, it was called tin foil for a
Right.
reason. It wasn't aluminum.
Right.
So there, that was the last thing that I saw that too much aluminum
Hmm.
may have caused some of it.
Well, if
I don't know.
you remember the soda cans from back in the early 70s, I mean, they were heavy things. That was not made of the aluminum that you say you have today.
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, there was just, innovation
Well, you got
sometimes brings its own problems.
yeah, you had the aluminum cans, and then you put in soda pop in it,
Yeah.
or however you want to refer to it, and it's 75% food grade phosphoric acid.
Yeah.
Boy, let me dump that down my gullet. Yummy.
Yes, yeah.
I don't drink hardly any soda anymore because it just gives me indigestion. Why drink it? Once in a blue moon, I'll have a Dr. Pepper just because, that just sounds good.
Yeah.
So,
It's just loaded with high
yeah.
fructose corn syrup, which has been proven to kind of get in your bloodstream so fast it raises your insulin level very, very quickly. And yeah, it's stuff that we just don't need. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
What else was it? That's the only thing I can remember that I heard a study on this, and it's been a few years ago. Oh, it was only 20 years ago, back in the 90s, so
Mhm.
it's probably 30 years
30
ago.
years ago. Yeah.
But that was it was talked about for quite a bit, that aluminum stuff, and now all of the aluminum pop cans are so thin from what they used to be.
Oh yeah.
So somebody dipped one in something and it got rid of all the aluminum, but the plastic. You think, well, I'm going to drink out of a metal can instead of
Yeah.
plastic because I don't want
There's
those
a
plastic bits in
there's
my
a
body.
plastic liner
There's a
in there.
plastic liner was still left. The
I saw
aluminum
that same
can was
video.
gone, but the liner was
This
jello-y,
is
right?
crazy.
Still working quite well.
And that was another thing too. As long as you bring up soda, is it back in, what was it, 1984, when Coke went to New Coke, and then they went back to Coke Classic, and right around that time, probably 1982, 83, they switched over from regular cane sugar to high fructose corn syrup, and then of course Diet Coke. I don't know what year that came out, but the things that your body can't really absorb the aspartame well. It absorbs in a different way, and it kind of screws up your system. And a friend of
I
mine.
can't have aspartame, or you'd have to talk to me from across the county.
Oh boy.
It has a chemical reaction in my mouth, and it's like a buzzard died in there last month.
Oh gosh.
Oh, it is. When you can smell your own breath just when you're talking coming out of your mouth, that's not good.
The guy we used to go to church with 20 years ago, he started getting early onset dementia. And his doctor asked him, one of the first things he said, his doctor asked him, he goes, "Do you drink a lot of diet soda?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, every day. I probably have, 5 or 6. And he says, "Well, you need to stop." And so you can derive your own opinion from that. Apparently that doctor believed that there was a connection. And so anyway, there's your Dr. Mike and Richard's wisdom of the week, and stay away from that soda, whether it's diet or not. Goodness gracious, it's just terrible for you.
That's what it's made with, folks. 75% Coke is 75% food grade phosphoric acid.
It's just awful.
Yummy. Put a nail in a can and see how long it takes for it to not be there anymore.
Not long. And don't drink it after that either, because that might be a little bit worse. Anyway, on the campaign trail, Trump has been asking the same question all of his stops, and Biden has directly responded to that question. Here's Trace Gallagher. He's breaking down that whole answer, and it's really good. Here you go.
During campaign stops, former President Trump is asking the old question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And Trump has now gotten a response from President Biden, who says, quote, "Well, Donald, I'm glad you asked that question, man, because I hope everyone in the country takes a minute to think back to what it was like in March of 2020. So if you have a minute, Common Sense would like to rewind the clock. In March of 2020, AAA says the average price of gas was $1.99 a gallon. Today it's $3.53. Mortgage rates in March 2020 averaged 3.29%. Today it's 7.2%. Food up 25%. Rent 22% up. Credit card debt 47% up. In 4 years, the illegal immigration population has gone up by 8 to 9 million. Homelessness, crime, also up. In fairness, some things are down, like test scores, arrests, and national pride. A Monmouth poll released today says 34% of Americans, 1/3 of the country, would settle in a different country if they were able. The previous high was in 1972, when 13% of Americans said they would leave. Common Sense thinks maybe instead of asking, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, the question should be, what the hell?
What the hell? What in the hell?
I'm so sick and tired of hearing the news media pushes it out, the propaganda machine, rather. It's not a news media, it's a propaganda machine. And the White House, the same thing about, it was such a mess when we took over. What world were you living in?
They're banking on people's short memory. And it works for, apparently Biden still has a 36% approval rating. I can't even
I
say
saw
it.
that the other day and I went, how in the hell? 36% approval? What?
Who are these 36% of people? I mean, what kind of, maybe they're drinking a Coke with a nail that got dissolved in it or something. It's just so stupid. I mean, how in the world do you believe that? Oh,
I don't get it. I mean, all you have to do is look at your own finances, go to the grocery store, and what you were getting 4 or 5 bags maybe, and it was $100, $110 or something. Now it's $160 for the same little tiny. They did that, by the way, on, speaking of which, I'll use that, was on Good Morning, Not America. Yeah. Is that the one that's on ABC? Good Morning America? Yeah, I think it is.
I think so.
I think it's the ABC one. Anyhow, they thought they would do a comparison. It was kind of blind comparison. They were doing stuff, and all of a sudden they went, uh-oh. The same exact groceries bought from the same exact store 4 years ago was right on about $100, and then they totaled it up for today, and it was $130.
And they were trying to make the point that
it's not any different. Yeah. It's like, uh-oh.
You got to love it when it blows up in their face like that.
I love that. Yeah, it's awesome. So
it is awesome.
Anyway,
gosh, let's see. I've got a little bit. You know what? We'll just go over on this one real quick because I want to cover this one. It seems that some celebrities have some buyer's remorse on who they endorsed and voted for in 2020. Here's The Rock back in 2020 on TV with Biden and Harris. I don't know who was interviewing them, but here's how that went.
I have never publicly endorsed a presidential candidate or a vice presidential candidate in my life, over my career. So I figured let's kick this conversation off this way by me officially publicly endorsing you both to become president and vice president of our great country.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. That
means a great deal to us, for real. Thank you.
Really. Thank you.
Yeah.
When he says for real, you got to believe that it means for real. But, you know, he's changed his tune in 2024. Here's how that goes.
Am I happy with the state of America right now? Well, that answer is no. Do I believe we're going to get better? I believe in that. I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe we can get better. The endorsement that I made years ago with Biden was one I thought was the best decision for me at that time. And I thought back then, when we talk about, hey, I'm in this position where I have some influence, and it's my job then. I felt like that then. It's my job now to exercise my influence and share with this is who I'm going to endorse. Am I going to do that again this year? That answer is no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things have changed in the Rock camp.
Egg on my face once is enough. I don't need another facial with multiple eggs this time.
Yeah, exactly. This is a B-list actor. I guess that may be a cut down to this guy, Michael Rappaport. Back in 2016, he had some comments about Trump and his presidency.
Proof. There's hope, friends.
He's a dog. He's a con. He's a liar. He's a mutt. I like to punch him in the face.
So apparently he didn't really care much for Trump back then. He's changed a little bit, and this is what he sounds like now.
Voting for Trump is on the table. People are like, what are you talking about? That's my reality. I will not vote for Joe Biden. I do not support anybody from the squad. I think they're totally full of it. I think they're dangerous. I think they're race hustlers. I think they're cons. I think inevitably they want to get themselves production deals to produce documentaries.
So I have to admit that when somebody changes their mind like this, you might look at it and go, "Wow, they're being wishy-washy," but I think there's some wisdom in that, because they can look at a situation and go, "Man, that was just downright stupid." And how many of us can say that we've never been stupid? I mean, that was just stupid, and I need to change what I'm thinking or who I'm endorsing.
He also did the same thing with the COVID. He started out being one of those that if you don't get your shot, your grandma's going to die, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And then the word was getting out and finding out that now all it did was make you a super spreader, which is what it did. Mm-hmm. It didn't do any good at all. All it did was turn you into, you can catch COVID like that, and then you can pass it on to others as quick as that shot didn't do one rat's ass bit of good to anybody.
Exactly. And the lack of fresh air and lack of sunshine it just exacerbated the whole super spreader thing. So anyway.
So he was not happy about that either. So he's had things down the line. So when he says being cons, he had rights for a lot of it.
I'll give him credit. I mean, when you recognize that we've all been stupid and wrong about things, I mean, the mature thing to do, the adult thing to do is say, that was wrong. I should not have done that. And this is my opinion now. And I don't believe it's going to change unless something else changes. And, I got to respect that. I've always liked The Rock. The Rock is one of those people that you can't not like. You watch any videos with him and Kevin Hart and the way they interact with each other. I mean, those guys are hilarious. So anyway, we're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to look at the Wall Street Journal poll that came out, I think it was last week, and how the swing states are comparing Trump and Biden. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. More of the Stay Off My Lawn podcast is coming up.
With more ways than ever to connect to news and entertainment, 90% of new car buyers want that tried and true AM/FM radio option. That's because your local radio stations are reliable, trustworthy, and bring you a local connection that can't be replicated. Not to mention, it's free. No subscription or cellular data required. More than 80 million Americans each month depend on AM for their news, weather, local sports, and entertainment, plus talk radio. Help keep AM radio an option in new cars. Text AM to 52886. You'll get an auto-filled email letter to send to Congress urging them to keep AM radio in cars. Again, text AM to 52886. Brought to you by your friends at the Stay Off My Lawn podcast. All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2, and we're going to jump into the Wall Street Journal poll that just came out recently, and it's about how the swing states are comparing Trump and Biden, and how the different news media outlets are responding to this. Here's the way MSNBC talked about it.
Neck and neck in every swing state. According to the new numbers from the Wall Street Journal, Trump leads Biden in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, and Pennsylvania by figures that are all within the poll's margin of error. In Wisconsin, the survey shows the two candidates tied at 46% each. The poll also finds negative perceptions about the economy remain a problem for Biden. 63% of swing state voters say the U.S. economy overall is not so good or poor condition, while 36% say it's in excellent or good condition.
Excellent or good condition? Are you kidding me? Who are these people?
What world are they living in? Do they have someone to go buy their groceries for them and to put gas? By the way, gas here just within the last 6 weeks has gone up $1 a gallon.
Oh, yeah.
In 6 weeks. We are now up to $3.95 a gallon. Almost $4 a gallon again.
Golly. I think we're at $3.29. But we're always a little bit cheaper here in the South for some reason. Yeah, everything's gone up. I don't understand how anybody can look at the way when you buy groceries or gas or anything can go, yeah, it's so much better. It's in excellent shape. How in the world I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If somebody doesn't know how to look at their checking account or savings account and go, because what is it? Credit card debt is first time over $1 trillion in the U.S. and rising.
People are using their credit cards to pay their bills.
Yeah, it's going to max out here pretty darn soon, and then things are going to explode, and that's where we're headed right now.
Yep, it's not getting any better, and
no,
we just need to change up things in the upper office.
Did you have anything else on that?
I do. It wouldn't be right if we ignored our friends over at CNN. This is how they reported on it.
What's underneath those horse race numbers? Well, a really dismal approval rating of President Joe Biden. He's at 38% approval, 60% disapprove. That's across all 7 of the battleground states. How does that compare with Trump's approval rating in terms of asking people now how Trump handled the presidency? And this, you see, a much more evenly divided nation here. 51% approve of the way Donald Trump handled his job as president, 47% disapprove across these battleground states.
Yeah, and that's battleground states. So, I mean, the red states are getting redder. I'm assuming the blue states are getting bluer. I mean, I don't know. I think he's got a real shot.
And you're still in the battleground. As long as the propaganda machines and you're watching any kind of news from MSNBC, I don't look at it every night like I used to now. I check it out maybe 2-3 times a week just to see the BS that they put out, and the amount of lying and just flat out and out propaganda is disgusting. Between MSNBC is the worst now, the worst. CNN, they're not very far behind, and they're losing their shorts. They're I don't know how they're still in business.
At least there's a little bit of honesty on that second clip. I mean, he was actually, not putting a spin on it like Mika was. But it's gotten to the point. I think MSNBC has the worst overall cable news network ratings, right underneath CNN. So, I mean,
Mhm.
they've got the worst ratings, but they keep doing the same thing. It's like, what's the definition of insanity?
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But I mean,
Yeah.
they don't seem to care.
Well, like Rachel Maddow was saying to State of the Union, we're not going to show you former President Trump's response.
Yeah.
I don't even think she called him president. I think
No.
Mr. Trump's response, because we want to stay factual here. I just went, excuse me? You don't even know what true facts are.
To them, if it even leans a little bit to the right, even if it's fact, like with the whole efficacy of masks and everything, you bring up COVID, it's just a perfect example of how things that were deemed misinformation and disinformation or whatever, and it has turned out to be absolutely true. The efficacies of the mask and the jab and the whole thing. It's like they don't like the answers, so they just say, well, so they ignore it. Ignoring that they were propping up their own misinformation for years.
Or tell you how they want it to be.
Yeah.
And therein lies the propaganda. It's like,
Absolutely.
no. So I don't know how long this is. You can't prop these news stations up for much longer.
I don't see,
the local ones are just, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're owned by somebody that has 30, 40 stations across the country, all saying the same garbage.
Yep.
And nobody's watching them. Pretty soon something has to give, because you can't keep putting money in when nobody wants to advertise with you in a conservative area and you are a liberal that owns the news station. It ain't going over. People just aren't listening anymore.
And even if you think that your local affiliate, a Fox affiliate, they don't necessarily follow what Fox News puts out. I mean, they are just as, at least the one here in Atlanta, they're just as liberal and left wing as any other, as CBS, NBC. So
Yep. It just depends on who owns them, because the same liberal owner might own a ABC station, and then they might have 5 or 6 CBSs, and then they'll have several Fox, and so they're all just the same.
Yeah.
Nothing's different,
It's
as we
all-
saw in that one clip where, what was it, 30 some odd stations, all they had the exact same script
Yeah.
saying the exact same thing.
I was just going to say, they all report on the same copy and pasted bullet points that the administration wants them to report on. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, our beloved VP was asked to chime in about the NCAA basketball tournament that was going on last week, specifically the women's side. That is, if you're able to define a woman correctly. I mean, I know they have trouble with that. Anyway, here's her response to all that. She's going to try to teach us something.
Do you know, a bit of a history lesson. Do you know that the women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022? Think about that. And talk about progress, better late than never, but progress. And what that has done, because of course, when, I had a bracket, it's not broken completely, but I won't talk about my bracket. But you know what? Just how we love March Madness, and even just now allowing the women to have brackets, and what that does to encourage people to talk more about the women's teams, to watch them. Now they're being covered, and this is the reality. People used to say, "Oh, women's sports, who's interested?" Well, if you can't see it, you won't be. But when you see it, you realize, oh.
Well, she's
What? If you can't see it, you won't be? What the hell was that?
She kills me. She's a shell. She's
Wow. Are you serious? So in other words, the women's bracket that I dropped a fin on, as they used to say, a $5 deal on in the late 80s, wasn't for a bracket?
Yeah, it was for a bracket. What I read, and you and I read two totally different things. I read that it was it had started in 1982. You read that it was
84.
84. So anyway, it was quite a while ago, one way or the other. The women's
2 years, I'm not going to quibble. Whatever. It's somewhere. It sure as hell wasn't 2022.
Well, you notice, that was because it was within their administration years.
And they got it done. No, they didn't.
They made such a difference.
This is the reality. You don't know reality from Shinola.
Oh my!
Give me a break.
If you don't see it, you don't know about it. So I mean,
I think she thinks that SpongeBob is real. So
Well, Bikini Bottom. I mean, I don't want to see that at all. And that was completely unscripted. All this is unscripted, folks. So just so you know, these are just things that come off the top of my head, which are really, really bad a lot of
good
times.
Lord, they're letting her talk again. And every time she goes out to talk, all she does is make matters worse. I think her approval rating is in the 20s.
Oh, easily.
Last I saw was 25% or something.
It was very, very low. Yeah. 20s for sure.
That's the biggest reason they haven't impeached Joe, because guess who's behind him? We're going to go from bad to worse.
I always said that about Obama, is that, the only reason that nobody will try to impeach him is because the only thing scarier than President Obama is President Biden. And here we are. We've got the same thing. But it seems like that's the Democratic side. Well, I guess you could say that about Bush Sr. with Dan Quayle. People were like, no, Dan Quayle's got to be done. It's like, he was a lawyer. He was very terrible at public speaking, but, he probably would have done a halfway decent job. But it seems like the Democrats like to put somebody that's completely airheaded as second in line. So
wow. She just, they've been letting her talk, and they do that for a little bit, and then they go, okay, this isn't working, and they pull her back. Joe can't talk either. No. So they're kind of put him back in the basement, and let's do what we did the last time.
Pull out Antony Blinken. Antony.
Anthony. Hey, Anthony, what you got for us?
Hey, let me talk to those Israelis there, man.
That didn't go over so well.
Did not go well. Did not go well.
Oh, my Lord. The EV craze, folks. Yikers.
Yeah, it's not taken off as the lefties in Washington had expected. EVs only account for 1% of all registered vehicles in the U.S. Pete Buttigieg, I get his name wrong all the time, was asked about this recently, and here's his response.
Tesla sales fell 8.5% the first quarter of this year. Ford this week is laying off 2/3 of its workforce at the F-150 electric Lightning plant. It's also scaling back a battery production facility because of sagging sales. EV sales are nowhere near what this president wanted or expected, yet the administration continues to shove them down consumers' throats. Why?
Well, let's be clear. Consumers have wanted and purchased more EVs every single year than the year before. And, Tesla is facing more competition as GM and Ford and Stellantis and other competitive players start to make sure they get a piece of the EV market. Let's be clear that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and we can't pretend otherwise. Sometimes when these debates happen, I feel like it's the early 2000s, and I'm talking to some people who think that we can just have landline phones forever.
That was a little bit, yeah. I mean, it's
he had to get the shovel out twice.
But it was kind of putting down people that don't believe in EVs, comparing them to people that want landlines in their house. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. He's just such a smug little.
He's horrible. And
like him.
People are not wanting the EVs. For one, Ford and that Lightning, that thing is, if you get it decked out like a regular pickup, which are on their own or $60,000, is over $100,000 for that pickup that has had nothing but issues and problems. It can't pull anything. No. A guy bought one for his family. They had a trailer. They were going on a vacation, and it broke down on them 4 times, and they had to rent a car to get home. It was still at a dealership.
Ain't that something?
And in the wintertime, this last winter being a little colder and lasted a little longer, their range almost goes in half. As soon as you take one of those electric pickups and start pulling something, it drops your mileage rating in half.
Well,
then when it's cold, you have another half of that that comes off.
When I was pulling my camper, it was about half of what I normally get. So I mean, I get that. But I mean, with an EV, I mean, once you're out of gas, you can't just pull over and there's not that many. We talked about that last week. There's not that many charging stations.
No, well, they what was it? How many? $500 million or something, and they were going to put charging stations all over the country, and so far they've only put 4 in 3 years or something. Yeah, there isn't an electric grid that can handle all of these cars anyway. In California, they have brownouts all the time, and they can't charge. They tell them, "Oh, you can't charge your cars overnight." Well, then how are they supposed to get to work the next day?
They don't want. They don't like those questions. Because they have.
They hate them.
Yeah,
they hate them. They hate them. They hate them.
We're up against a break again. When we come back, we're going to continue on the EV climate change hoax thing that's going on. Gosh, did I say hoax? Sorry. So anyway, hang in there.
No, I think you meant to say bahooey.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I was afraid I'd spit my gum out. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
This is what happens when you mix opinionated old guys and microphones. Stay off my lawn. We'll be right back.
St. Jude founder Danny Thomas once said, "There is no kinder act than helping someone less fortunate than yourself. Your kindness and dedication in the generous giving you do is essential to help further the life-saving mission of St. Jude, finding cures, saving children." St. Jude Children's Research Hospital has been around since 1962, and in all that time, no child has ever been denied treatment based on race, religion, or their family's ability to pay. To learn more and do your part, visit stjude.org.
Hi, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 3, and we are past. We were just talking about the whole EV and global warming thing. A lot of left-wing crazies out there are getting their panties in a wad over CO2 emissions. Of course, CO2 is only 0.04% of the total atmosphere, but details. We don't need to talk about that. But they like talking about CO2 emissions to push the EV agenda. But Alex Newman, he's a CEO of Liberty Sentinel Media, and he's also an Epoch Times contributor. This is how he sees CO2. It's very interesting.
A lot of this environmental question depends on, I think, a very flawed fundamental presupposition. It depends on the idea that carbon dioxide is pollution. And I would argue, after interviewing hundreds of scientists, including many who've worked for the UN IPCC, many of the leading scientists in the world, that the notion that CO2 is pollution is absolutely preposterous. We exhale about 2 pounds of it every single day. The proportion of greenhouse gases made up of human CO2 emissions is a fraction of 1%. The idea that that is going to destroy the planet or change the temperature of the earth is, frankly, in my opinion, totally ludicrous. But from a totalitarian perspective, if you can convince people that CO2 is pollution, there's no human activity that doesn't result in CO2 emissions, including living, including dying, turning on a light switch. Every single aspect of your life then, if we submit to the idea that CO2 is pollution, then comes under the regulatory control of the people who claim to be saving us from pollution. So when they do these environmental studies and they say, well, your CO2 footprint will be smaller if you eat bugs or you do this, that, or the other, you drive an electric car, that doesn't show anything about whether that's going to benefit the environment or not. In fact, CO2 has actually been very beneficial for the environment. In interviewing Trump's climate advisor, Dr. William Happer, a physics professor at Princeton University, he said the Earth is starving for more CO2. And since we've had a little bit of an increase in atmospheric CO2 over the last 100 years or so, plants have gotten much greener, agricultural yields have improved. So I think we need to also talk about the fundamental presupposition here. Is CO2 really pollution?
I read recently that they were talking about that we need more CO2 because and it might have been that guy from Australia that you and I listened to, where he's like going, that the Earth has benefited from extra CO2, which has happened in the past, and if we're going to feed the 7 billion people, up to 9 billion people in the future, then we're going to need more crops and higher yields of these crops in order to feed everybody. So, I mean, maybe this is just an adaptation that the Earth is giving us with the more people. I don't know.
Well, I like he said, we expel, what was it, like 2 pounds or something of CO2 a day. It depends on if you had chili the night before. So,
if it's Wednesday and you celebrated Taco Tuesday, it could be completely different.
But the gentleman from Australia that we had several times on mentioned that if we get down, it's 0.04%, and if we get down to 0.02, plants will start dying.
Yeah,
because that would be like us cutting our oxygen off we can't breathe. Well, plants can't grow. They need the CO2. It's part of the process, photosynthesis process. You've got the light, and then you got to have CO2, and the plants and the trees and everything goes, they suck all that in. So when you have idiots like our friend from Microsoft that are saying you need to not plant trees and cut them down. What are you he is so not he hasn't even got a clue how things work. That's the dumbest advice I ever heard anybody say.
If you remember,
but yeah, we're in a world of hurt where we're just barely above minimum right now for CO2. And for them to say that it's clean energy is up. We have had that on several times.
Yeah.
What a crock.
Yeah.
It is not clean energy.
If you remember 20 years ago, these environmentalist people were all like, if we start clear cutting these forests, we're going to have issues because, there's going to be, we need more trees. And the more, the more trees that we plant, the more CO2 is required to make those trees flourish and grow. And
yep.
So it's like they're talking out both sides of their mouth. It's almost like they forgot everything. It's all about whatever is expedient for their purpose today, and that's pushing EVs and getting people to live in 15-minute cities and the whole thing. So.
And they are so toxic to get rid of those EV batteries, and God forbid something happens, which they catch on fire on a semi-regular basis.
Yes, they do.
They can't put them out. One fire station said they used was close to a river or something, and so they were sucking water out of the river. Over 40,000 gallons of water they sprayed on this car, and it would die down. As soon as they stopped spraying, flame on.
Flame on. Yeah, I mean, it's just insane how these EVs, we're just not ready. I'm not against electric vehicles.
No, the technology is not there. Wait till we get it. I mean, yeah, you can go down the road. That's nice, and they're quiet.
We're just not ready. We're just not ready.
No.
I think there's probably something else that's going to replace that, because I don't think that route is sustainable, especially with all the crap that we have to dig up in order to get all the minerals and everything for the batteries and the infrastructure that we have in place. I mean, it's going to cost trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. They don't care how much money it costs because they just print more. But it's going to affect our offspring down the road, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren down the road.
Just keep printing, and all you're doing is adding to the inflation. And Biden says it's not caused by the government. I know a Pulitzer Prize winning economist who has said otherwise.
Our friend Milton Friedman.
Anywhere else.
As a matter of fact, I have a clip from him that I didn't play today, but it's on exactly that. We'll have to run it next week. We have way too many news stories for this week. I mean, I was thinking that, coming up on election time, we were going to kind of run out of news stories, but man, it just seems like
no, they're hot and heavy with idiots.
I probably could get another hour in this show very easily. Anyway, it always surprises me when people say that voter ID is racist. Of course, for me personally, I've met people of all races. I've never met anyone without an ID. Unless you're an illegal immigrant, of course, that I think that's their point with this whole thing. But I'm not sure how you navigate through life at all without an ID. Here's a few things that IDs, and this is from the Washington Examiner. There's a great list in their newspaper about this, what you need IDs for on a day-to-day basis. If you purchase alcohol or cigarettes, you need an ID. Open a bank account. Apply for food stamps or welfare, which our lefties like to do. Apply for Medicaid or Social Security. Apply for a job or unemployment. Rent an apartment or a house, or apply for a mortgage. Drive, rent, or buy a car, get married, adopt a pet, rent a hotel room, buy a cell phone, visit a casino, or donate blood. But voting, let's take that off the table because that's just terrible. I mean,
I have seen several man on the street interview things, but the best one I saw was this guy went to Brooklyn in New York, and there is a large black community there, and he was stopping them on the road, and this one lady looked at him so indignantly, it cracked me up. She goes, "Of course I got my ID." He goes, "I don't need to see it." It's like, and they all looked at him like, "Yes, I got an ID." Yeah. So who are they trying to? It's the, the most secure election, which again, my opinion, propaganda machine telling you, wink, wink, nod, nod. You believe us, right? This was so secure, wink, wink. Yeah, this was a good election, wink, wink. And they're finding more and more and more fraud, and again, in your state and in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just doesn't seem. I think the mail-in thing
and no ID. Go vote in person. If you can't vote in person, well, that's nobody. Even if I used to work 12, 14-hour days. I still had time to go vote. I never missed an election.
Our county has a bus service. They could dedicate that bus service on election day to round up these people who don't have transportation and get them to we have early voting. We vote for 2 weeks prior to election day. Yeah, we vote. I think it's almost 2 weeks, 10 days. So, I mean, we
only absentee voted one time, and you had to do it in person at a courthouse annex where they had it all set up. You'd go in and what district, what are you from? Here's what it is. Okay, we've got this machine set up. Now you can vote there.
Yeah.
And it was all, you still had to go in person, show your ID, and go vote.
Yeah, this is still in person, but you can vote early, and that way you can get in and out in 5 minutes, which a lot of times you do. You go over that on a random Wednesday or whatever, and you can get in and out very, very quickly. And but yeah, you still have to show your ID. And I actually, and just me personally, I like the idea of having one day everybody show up and do it. But the problem is that a lot of these districts, even in the district I live in, the line is out the door, and you're there for a couple of hours.
Well, since they went to those voting machines, they're kind of expensive, and they can only have so many of them. We used to be able to do that where we would color in the little circle. It was the same place for like 14 years we went to up the road. Then they got electronic equipment in the last 3-4 years. And you go, and again, the lines are long because they didn't have enough machines. Before, you don't need a machine. You just had the little cardboard thing set up, and you color in the little squares, the circles, and you move on.
What were those hanging chads? Remember the hanging chads?
Yeah, we had those for a little while. They quit doing that, so they went to the color in the box. So anyway,
Congressman Wesley Hunt was driving this point home about IDs, and it's really good. Here we go.
Sitting with me today is my global entry card, my military ID card, my Texas driver's license, my Texas license to carry, because that's how we roll in Texas, my congressional card, and of course, the good old-fashioned American passport. What sorcery is this? What am I, the Black Houdini? How was I able to pull off the impossible and attain not 1, not 2, not 3, but 6 government-issued IDs? Personal responsibility in this country. I fought for this country as an Apache helicopter pilot to protect free and fair elections, and having a government-issued ID isn't racist, it's American. You need to have an ID to drive a car, to check into the airport, open a bank account. You need an ID for basically everything to be a responsible adult in this country, except for voting, apparently, according to the left. Black America does not need well-meaning liberals putting their arms around us and telling us how we should go to the polls. In fact, if you look at recent headlines and polls, you will find that Black men specifically in this country are more fired up than ever to participate in the next presidential election. And I think I know why, and I'm really looking forward to these results. For the record, in the 2022 midterms in Georgia, it proved that election integrity and ballot accessibility can be achieved hand in hand.
Yeah, here in Georgia, they had they called all of Governor Kemp's attempts at reducing the amount of drop boxes and everything. They called that racist, and it certainly didn't turn out that way. Of course, the counting of the votes, that was a totally different story, as you alluded to earlier.
Yes, it's there was a lot of hinky stuff going on. Oh, there was a major pipe break. You all have to leave. Is everybody gone? Okay, pull these trunks out from underneath the desk. Now start shoving them through as quick as you can.
And you know what? The thing is, that was all on video, and it still didn't make any difference. It made no difference.
I don't understand how does that not get. It's on. It's not fake. It's.
But anyway, Congressman Hunt is apparently a black sorcerer because he's got all these IDs.
I don't have 6 IDs. I don't have a passport.
I've got a passport. I've got a concealed carry ID like he has. I've got my driver's license. I think that's about all. I've got a Costco card, but I mean, I don't know. It
does have your picture on it.
It does, exactly. It's a grainy black and white one on the back, but it's there. Anyway, we're up against another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Constitution Day, and Mother Miriam from the Catholic Church has some great comments about the upcoming election. So hang in there. We will be right back.
Hey, this is Kendra Rains, and I love these two old guys. That's why I listen to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast. And you should too.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 4. We are almost done.
It's almost breakfast time for me.
That's right. It's the red zone offense here. Have you? Yeah, I have to admit, I have not ever heard of Constitution Day. Have you heard of that before?
I'd heard of it, but it wasn't really a big thing. And why it is this year, I don't know.
Well, its origins go back to the early 1900s, and it's taken a few different forms since then. They called it different things, but it's something they do in Congress every September 17th. Here's former representative from Hawaii and former presidential candidate in 2020, Tulsi Gabbard, talking about this whole Constitution Day, especially the way it shakes out in the Congress every year.
In Congress, I think it's on Constitution Day, there is a reading of the Constitution on the House floor from start to finish. Those members of Congress who choose to go and participate in it go and read a section, people taking turns until you go through the whole thing. The first year that I found out about this, I volunteered and I wanted to go down and be a part of it. And I don't remember who told me this, but someone told me, because there were not very many members of Congress participating at all. And I questioned someone about why that was. The answer that I got was, well, a lot of Democrats see this as just a right-wing conservative thing. To go to the House floor and read the Constitution. That, as you said, every one of us, as members of Congress, obviously those of us who wear the uniform, same thing, raise our right hand and swear to uphold. And that was very disturbing. When you look at the results and you look at the fruits that tree is bearing, you get it.
Why is it a right-wing thing? It seems insane to me.
It's our Constitution. It's how our laws and how our country is ran and what it's based on. But as we've been seeing this last 3.5 years, is that it is, how do you want to say it? As I said earlier, being used basically as a doormat and wiping their feet on it, and then accusing Trump that that's what he's going to do. And that's not the case.
That's designed to draw the attention away from what they're actually doing.
Oh yeah, it's like don't look at what we're doing. Here's what he's going to do. No, you're already doing it, and that is being vocalized by more and more and more people every day. They're not fooling anybody. It's their narrative is getting whitewashed left and right.
My wife said that last night, though. It's like, if he was going to do that, did he do that the first 4 years he was in office? If he was going to do that, it seems like he would have done it already by kind of being a dictator or whatever. He didn't do any of that stuff.
No, they said he was going to do all of that. The same stuff they're saying now they said in 2016.
Absolutely.
He did none of it. Not one single bit. He did stuff that he said he promised he would do and did it.
Yeah.
And that they don't like that because politicians don't have to keep their promises. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's part of the reason they hated him, because he stuck to his guns and he did most everything he meant to do.
So Constitution Day, this was funny that we were passing this back and forth with each other, and I saw I get things from, it's called the Heritage Foundation, which is a university, a small one, and they are a constitutionalist, if you will, university that, you know, America is founded on this. So you can actually go, folks, educate yourself. I loved classes when I was in school. I'm going to re-educate myself. If you go online and look for the Heritage Guide to the Constitution, you're going to find it online. I'm sure it'll come up. What it includes is a clause-by-clause analysis of the entire Constitution and each amendment, and there's plenty of them, input from more than 100 constitutional scholars and legal experts, including former Attorney General Ed Meese, 475 pages reviewing what the Constitution actually says and how it applies to today, and a copy of the Constitution and the documents that serve as its foundation. Now, if you've never read the actual Constitution, you look at it and it's, for one, if you're one of these younger kids that's never had handwriting and you've printed everything, you're going to go, what is all this scriggly stuff? It is written in hand and it's in script, but there are letters that are, and I forget what the rules are, but after I start reading it, I remember that is an S and not an F.
Yeah.
But they look like Fs, but they're not. I had to educate my daughter on that when we went to Williamsburg when we were back there a few years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, I am a constitutionist, the American Revolution. I love all that stuff. But it's a little difficult to read the handwriting that it's in.
Sure. But it's not very long. I mean, you think it might be the size of an encyclopedia or something. It's not very long. You could get through it in about 15 minutes. There's a lot to it. I mean, and you hear people bring up things, and a lot of people don't even understand. I've brought up things to people before. Well, that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. They're going, "What's the Fourth Amendment?" It's like, what do you mean Fourth Amendment? It's like, so a lot of people don't know, and with access to the information that we have today as compared to our generation growing up, I mean, there's no reason to be ignorant of anything.
Right.
And
I saw this come up from the Heritage Foundation. I went, what a great way. It's free, people. Doesn't cost you a penny.
Yep.
You can educate yourself for nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to refresh my education on it because I forget some of the different amendments and all that's come out and what's been done, and the amendment that screwed us with the taxes and all that stuff.
Well, maybe we'll share that link on Instagram. If you follow us on Instagram, I'll put that link up there after the show. I'll look that up. I'm going to take that class too, and I think it's a great refresher for everybody. But anyway, it's, as an American, we all should be familiar one way or the other.
Yep. I agree.
Everyone seems to be chiming in on the cultural craziness that we're seeing, and of course the election crap that's going on also. But I'm no Catholic, so I've never heard of this nun, but her name is Mother Miriam, and she really doesn't pull any punches. This is a podcast that she has, and I bet you the Pope's not happy with her. But anyway, here's what she had to say.
It's an election year in the U.S. In normal times, an election is the moment when ordinary people can take back control of their nation's destiny. But these are not normal times. Across the globe, men and women are waking up to the alarming truth that governments no longer serve God or the people. And beloved, I'll interrupt to say myself that if President Trump gets in, it's a complete act of God. If Biden is not reelected, it is a complete act of God, because every scheme and every evil is out there that he would continue to be our president, as inept and evil as he is. at least done evil things. And those that surround him and advise him and even direct him, the devil is wise. And I would not put it past them to do anything. I know that recently someone has made a motion that no one should be able to vote who cannot prove U.S. citizenship. I totally agree with that. But there are those in the Democratic Party who do not. So we are up against not just an election, but an absolute war for good against good and evil.
I'm a Baptist, and I love this woman.
I don't have a problem with anything she said. I don't have anything to add to it. That's pretty much it, people.
Yeah, that's
that's it in a nutshell. I really have nothing to add to that.
She's fantastic. So anyway, on that note, which is actually a very positive note, we still have a palate cleanser. And my friend Richard, why don't you explain what this is?
Well, this was a story I ran across on Facebook, and my wife was feeling kind of bummed about the recovery process, and she was only about a week and a half into it, and I ran across this story, and it just cracked me up. So while she was convalescing, I went in and read it to her, and it made her laugh and put a smile on her face. So I decided I would read this. It's a gift for my wife and has to do with protection.
Yes, protection.
When you're out and about. I'm not even going to give away what it is
don't
because
give it away. And some of you may have read this story, but the way Richard reads it is fantastic. So
I do have a link to this that happened to me with a dryer, so I do understand the feeling you get.
We'll have to visit that again.
At the end, I'll maybe tell you about that. But anyway,
all right,
enjoy, folks. This is something to put a smile on your face. That's all it is. Not meant for anything other than that.
All right, here we go.
A Gift for My Wife, narrated by Richard Durrington. This is a warning for all males when buying a security device for a loved one. Last weekend, I saw something at the gun show that sparked my interest. I was looking for a little something different for my wife, Nancy. What I came across was a 100,000-volt pocket purse-sized taser. The effects of the taser were supposed to be short-lived, with no long-term adverse effect on your assailant, allowing her adequate time to retreat to safety? Way too cool. Long story short, I bought the device and brought it home. I loaded 2 little AAA batteries in the darn thing and pushed the button. Nothing. I was disappointed. I learned, however, that if I pushed the button and pressed it against the metal surface at the same time, I'd get a blue arc of electricity darting back and forth between the prongs. Awesome! Unfortunately, I have yet to explain to Nancy what the burn spot is on the face of her microwave. Okay, so I was home alone with this new toy, thinking to myself that it couldn't be all that bad with only 2 little itty-bitty AAA batteries, right? There I sat in my recliner, my cat Leo looking on intently, trusting little soul that he is, while I was reading the directions and thinking that I really needed to try this thing out on a flesh and blood moving target. I must admit I thought about zapping Leo for just a fraction of a second, and then thought better of it. He's such a sweet cat. But if I was going to give this thing to my wife to protect herself against a mugger, I did want some assurance that it would work as advertised. Am I wrong? So there I sat in a pair of shorts and a tank top with my reading glasses perched delicately on the bridge of my nose, directions in one hand and taser in another. The directions said that a 1-second burst would shock and disorient your assailant. A 2-second burst was supposed to cause muscle spasms and a major loss of bodily control. And a 3-second burst would purportedly make your assailant flop on the ground like a fish out of water. Any burst longer than 3 seconds would just be wasting the batteries. All the while, I'm looking at this little device measuring about 5 inches long, less than 3/4 inches in circumference, loaded with 2 little itsy-bitsy AAA batteries. Pretty cute, really, and thinking to myself, there's no possible way. What happened next is almost beyond description, but I'll do my best. I'm sitting there alone, the cat looking on with his head cocked to one side so as to say, "Don't do it, stupid," reasoning that a 1-second burst from such a tiny little old thing couldn't hurt that bad. So I decided to give myself a 1-second burst just for the heck of it. I touched the prongs to my naked thigh, pushed the button, and holy mother of God, weapons of mass destruction! What the? I am certain I just met Jesus. I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan ran in through the side door, picked me up in the recliner, then body slammed us both on the carpet, over and over and over again. I vaguely recall waking up on my side in the fetal position with tears in my eyes, body soaking wet, both nipples on fire, testicles nowhere to be found, with my left arm tucked under my body in the oddest position and tingling in my legs. The cat was making meowing sounds I had never heard before, clinging to a picture frame hanging above the fireplace, obviously in an attempt to avoid getting body slammed by my body flopping all over the living room. Note, if you ever feel compelled to mug yourself with a taser, one note of caution. There is no such thing as a 1-second burst when you zap yourself. You will not let go of that thing until it is dislodged from your hand by a violent thrashing about on the floor. A 3-second burst would be considered conservative. A minute or so later, I can't be sure as time was a relative thing at that point, I collected my wits, what little I had left, sat up, and surveyed the landscape. My bent reading glasses were now on top of the TV. The recliner was upside down and about 8 feet or so from where it originally was. My triceps, right thigh, and both nipples were still twitching. My face felt like it had been shot up with Novocaine, and my bottom lip, I swear, weighed 88 pounds. I had no control over the drooling. Apparently, I had crapped in my shorts, but was too numb to know for sure, and my sense of smell was gone. I saw a faint smoke cloud above my head, which I believe came from my hair. I am still looking for my testicles, and I'm offering a significant reward for their safe return. P.S. My ever-loving wife can't stop laughing about my experience. She loved the gift and now regularly threatens me with it.
Well, good luck finding those testicles. I mean, it seems like that would be the...
They gotta be around somewhere.
I mean, maybe the cat hid them. Look in the litter box. I mean, it could be...
Yeah.
Could be anywhere.
Anyway, yeah, no, I do have a little, I was fixing a dryer one time, and the old dryers, the bottom part would pop forward and you could get underneath them. The pulley wheel on the dryer was, squeaking and making noise, so I had ordered a new pulley wheel. No big deal. The belt was still in good shape. All I was going to do was slide it out of the slot, put a new one in, did it in about, it didn't take 5 minutes, and I was done. And then I noticed, wow, the dryer motor head was just covered in dust bunnies and lint. Now, that's not good on electrical equipment. It'll get hot. So I'm cleaning it off, and as I almost had it all cleaned off, my fingers went across the contact points on the motor. I did not turn the dryer off. I did not unplug it or turn it off at the circuit. Guess what 220 does to you when you touch your finger across 2 contact points?
Oh, boy.
I drew my hand out of there quickly. I was in the, like he says, fetal position. My legs were drawn up because I was already in a scrunched little spot. I couldn't say anything. All I was doing was going, and my daughters, it was close to the kitchen, noticed. And all I remember is looking up and seeing 3 girls and my wife above me just roaring, thinking it was funny as hell because I couldn't talk and everything was twitching and just thought it was hilarious. So and my hands were in a clench and my knee was drawn up. I couldn't move anything. I mean, nothing.
Wow.
So I understood how I felt. And finally I said, shit, and finally got it out and told my wife, put my leg down and open my hands. It was bad. So I understood I ain't touching a taser to me. Ain't no way, people. So yeah, I have a firsthand experience. Stop laughing at me in there.
Thankfully, AC will throw you off. Yeah, I know. Steve laughs at you every time you tell these kind of stories.
He's in there. Oh, knock it off. He'll be back next week.
He's half in the bag again today anyway. So
Lord.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, luckily it was AC. It threw you off. If it was DC, you would still be there.
Yeah.
Gee. Well, anyway, we do hope that you were somewhat informed. Don't mess with the dryer unless you have it unplugged at the very least, and had fun like we did. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Google, Miss A, and YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Or you could just go to our website and view all of our past and present episodes at stayoffmylawn.us.
And we'll see you next week, folks.
Thanks for listening. Toodles. Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.